Picture a Saturday night in 1974. The bathwater has gone cold, the coal fire is crackling in the grate, and the whole family is crammed onto one settee in front of a rented color telly. 3 channels. No remote. No catching up later, you watched it live, or you missed it forever. For millions of British families, Saturday night was the warm heart of the week, the one evening everyone stayed in together. These are the 25 forgotten shows that once brought the nation to a standstill. Let's begin the countdown with number 25. Number 25. Sale of the Century opened the evening with a promise that felt almost sinful in grey, 3-day week Britain. And now, from Norwich, it's the quiz of the week. Nicholas Parsons, silver-tongued and immaculately suited, stood before a studio glittering with prizes that ordinary families could only dream of. A 3-piece suite, a fridge freezer, and gasped over as though it were the crown jewels, a brand new motorcar. In the early 1970s, when a color television still had to be rented from radio rentals because buying one outright cost a month's wages, the sight of all that plenty was hypnotic. Contestants jabbed their buzzers while dads shouted answers at the screen and mums told them to hush. The theme tune sent children scurrying from the bathroom in their pajamas. As ITV quizzes grew louder and flashier through the 1980s, Norwich's gentle glamour faded, and with it went one of Saturday night's quietest pleasures. Number 24. Celebrity Squares turned a game of noughts and crosses into a temple of cheeky British innuendo. Bob Monkhouse, slick as a Brill-creamed comb, presided over a giant grid stuffed with famous faces, each waiting in their lit box to answer a question with a joke rather than the truth. Willie Rushton peered out from one square, Arthur Mullard grunted from another, and the studio audience roared at gags that sailed just close enough to the wind to feel daring. Broadcast across the ITV regions, it was the sound of a nation learning to laugh at itself on a Saturday tea time. Children barely understood half the punchlines, but loved the din, the flashing lights, the sheer daftness of grown-ups being silly for money. When the format was rested, that particular blend of quiz and music hall wickedness quietly disappeared, remembered now only by those who once sat cross-legged on the carpet, waiting for Bob to wink at the camera. Number 23. New Faces was Saturday night's cruel and thrilling talent contest, a show where dreams were made and dismantled in the space of 90 seconds. Hopeful singers, comedians, and novelty acts stepped onto the ITV stage to face a panel of judges who could be merciless. Tony Hatch became the man the whole nation loved to hate, his verdicts landing like cold water decades before television learned to call this format entertainment again. Families argued over the marks awarded for star quality, presentation, and content, Mum defending the poor lad with the guitar, while Dad insisted he was flat. It launched real careers, comedians and singers who would go on to fill theaters, and it broke 1,000 others live on air. When the show faded, Britain lost its weekly ritual of judging strangers together, a communal verdict delivered from the sofa with tea going cold in the cup. Number 22. The Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club recreated a working men's club and beamed it straight into the front room. Colin Crompton sat as the club's grumbling concert chairman, tapping his microphone and reading out mock notices, the committee's decisions, the bingo, the pie situation, while turns came and went on the little stage behind him. The ITV cameras caught the smoke, the pint glasses, the Northern Club circuit exactly as it really was, all brass and beer and blunt comedy. For families in terraced streets from Wigan to Wolverhampton, it felt like home, a Saturday night down the club without leaving the settee. It captured a Britain of trades and unions and Saturday sing-alongs that was already beginning to vanish. As those very clubs began to close their doors through the 1980s, the show that immortalized them slipped away too, a warm and smoky ghost of a world, that no longer exists. Number 21. 3, 2, 1 baffled and delighted the nation in almost equal measure. Ted Rogers, all quick patter, and that impossible 3, 2, 1 hand gesture nobody could ever copy, guided couples through a maze of quizzes, sketches, and cryptic clues designed to be so confusing that the final prize was often lost on purpose. And presiding over it all was Dusty Bin, the mischievous mechanical dustbin who became one of ITV's most unlikely stars. A booby prize that children adored more than any car. Families spent whole evenings shouting at the screen, trying and failing to decode riddles that seemed engineered by a madman. Nobody fully understood the rules, and that was precisely the point. It ran for years, a fixture of the Saturday schedule, before television tastes moved on. Dusty Bin was retired, the strange logic packed away, and one of the most gloriously peculiar shows Britain ever made rattled off into memory. Number 20. Space 1999 promised British children a glimpse of a future that felt genuinely, thrillingly possible. Jerry Anderson, the man behind so many childhood dreams, traded puppets for real actors and built Moonbase Alpha, a gleaming lunar station flung across the galaxy when the moon was blasted out of Earth's orbit. On Saturdays, families gathered to watch Martin Landau and Barbara Bain stride down white corridors in beige jumpsuits, facing strange creatures and stranger science. The special effects were extraordinary for their day. The Eagle spacecraft, a thing of genuine beauty, lovingly recreated in toy form for 1,000 Christmas mornings. For a generation raised on the Apollo landings, a moon adventure felt only a few years away. As American science fiction grew slicker and the appetite shifted, Alpha drifted from the schedules. Yet ask anyone who was small in 1975, and they will still hum that urgent, pulsing theme. Number 19. The Basil Brush Show ruled the Saturday tea time slot with nothing more than a glove puppet fox and an outrageous laugh. "Boom, boom!" Basil would cry, delighted by his own terrible jokes, while his long-suffering human companion tried in vain to keep order. The fox's plummy voice, his monocle, and his relentless mischief made him the most beloved character on children's television, a puppet with more personality than half the humans on the schedule. Families settled in as the light faded outside, the tea things not yet cleared, children giggling at gags they would repeat all week at school. Basil bridged the gap between afternoon and evening, the moment Saturday tipped from daytime into the grown-up glamour to come. When tea-time television was reshaped and the old formats retired, the fox with the filthy laugh took his final bow. But that boom, boom still echoes for anyone who was ever small and happy on a Saturday. Number 18. The Val Doonican music show was the gentlest half-hour on television, and the nation adored it for exactly that. The Irish crooner sat in his famous rocking chair, sang soft ballads in that honeyed voice, and wore jumpers so magnificently patterned they became a national talking point in themselves. There was no shouting here, no flashing lights, just Val, a guitar, and songs your Nan could sing along to. On a Saturday night, when the rest of the schedule roared with variety and quiz show clamor, his show was the calm in the middle of it all, the moment the whole family exhaled. Grandparents loved him, parents relaxed to him, and even restless children were lulled by that easy charm. As musical tastes turned sharper and louder through the 1980s, the rocking chair fell still. Val's quiet magic, all cardigans and kindness, belonged to a softer Britain that was already slipping away. Number 17. Seaside Special brought the sunshine of the great British holiday resort straight into the living room every summer Saturday. Filmed under a real circus big top pitched at Blackpool, Weymouth, or Brighton, it gathered singers, comedians, dancers, and specialty acts into one glittering variety spectacular. The audience sat on wooden benches, the sea just beyond the canvas, and for families who could only dream of a fortnight at the coast, it was the next best thing. The theme music promised candy floss and donkey rides and the smell of salt on the wind. Dancers high-kicked, a comic told his gags, a big star closed the show, and the whole nation felt, for an hour, that they were on holiday too. As package trips abroad lured Britain to sunnier shores and the old resorts faded, so did the show. The big top came down for the last time, taking a whole summer ritual with it. Number 16. Dad's Army held its place in the Saturday evening schedule as the warmest comedy the BBC ever made. The bumbling Home Guard of Walmington-on-Sea, pompous Captain Mainwaring, gentle Sergeant Wilson, ancient Lance Corporal Jones crying, "Don't panic!" while panicking magnificently, became as familiar as family. Written with real affection for the wartime generation still very much alive and watching, it turned the anxieties of 1940 into something tender and hilarious. Households of every age laughed together, grandparents remembering the real thing, children too young to know the war but old enough to love Pike and his scarf. It was Britain laughing gently at its own myth of plucky defiance. Though it was eventually wrested, few shows have ever been so beloved, repeated so endlessly, or quoted so fondly. Yet for those who first met the platoon on a proper 1970s Saturday night, it will always belong to that particular hush before the pips. Number 15. The Dick Emery Show handed the nation a gallery of comic characters it took straight to its heart. Emery, a master of disguise and rubber-faced brilliance, transformed himself week after week into a parade of unforgettable creations, none more famous than the busty blonde who would shove her interviewer and squeal, "Ooh, you are awful, but I like you," before tottering off. Families roared as he vanished into wig after costume after voice, each character funnier than the last. On a Saturday night, his sketch show was appointment viewing, the sort of comedy the whole household could enjoy at once, from granddad to the youngest allowed to stay up. Catchphrases spread through playgrounds and pubs alike. As sketch comedy evolved into something more knowing and biting, Emery's broad, generous, character-driven style fell out of fashion. But the sight of that blonde wig still raises a smile for anyone who remembers being awful, but liked. Number 14. Mike Yarwood was, for a decade, quite simply the man who was everyone. Britain's greatest impressionist held up a mirror to the whole nation on a Saturday night, becoming prime ministers, footballers, singers and newsreaders with a tilt of the head and a shift of the voice. His Harold Wilson, pipe and all, was so beloved that the real politicians reportedly worried more about Yarwood's version than the opposition. Families gathered to see who he would become next, Dad naming each impression a beat too late, the whole room delighting in the game. He always closed with a song and the words, "And this is me," a rare glimpse of the shy man behind all those faces. As alternative comedy arrived to tear up the old rules, the gentle art of the affectionate impression lost its throne. Yarwood's reign, once unassailable, quietly ended, and Saturday nights were never quite so familiar again. Number 13. Cilla brought Liverpool warmth and a voice like a foghorn to the very center of the BBC's Saturday schedule. Cilla Black, all cheek and charm and that unmistakable laugh, sang, chatted, and made the nation feel she was one of the family, a mate who happened to have a television show. She was the rare female star trusted to headline a Saturday night entirely on her own, and she carried it with an ease that made it look effortless. Households loved her ordinariness, the way she seemed as thrilled to be there as they were to watch. She would go on to even greater fame with the shows that came later, but in the 1970s it was simply Cilla, a girl from Scotty Road holding the whole country's affection. When the format changed and the years moved on, that particular early show slipped from memory, though the warmth it left behind never quite did. Number 12. The black and white minstrel show occupies an uncomfortable but honest place in this list, because for a long time it was one of the most watched programs on British television, and it is now rightly remembered with shame. Broadcast by the BBC on Saturday nights, it featured white performers in blackface singing old-time songs, drawing enormous audiences and even winning international awards in its heyday. Millions tuned in, and for years its popularity went largely unquestioned by the broadcasters who made it. But attitudes were changing, and mounting objection to the crude and demeaning racial caricature at its core became impossible to ignore. The BBC finally took it off the air in 1978. It survives today not as a fond memory, but as a stark reminder of how casually prejudice was once packaged as family entertainment, and of how much, and how necessarily, the nation's sense of what belonged on a Saturday night would change. Number 11. Kojak strode across the Atlantic and straight into British affections, a bald New York detective with a lollipop and a heart of gold. Telly Savalas, shaven-headed and impossibly cool, delivered his catchphrase, "Who loves you, baby?" with a warmth that softened all the mean streets around him. On a Saturday night, the BBC gave the nation a taste of gritty American cities utterly unlike the terraced rows outside the window, and families were transfixed. Dads admired the tough talk, kids copied the swagger, and half the country seemed to be sucking lollipops by Monday morning. It was glamorous, dangerous, and thrillingly foreign, a window onto a world of yellow taxis and sharp suits. As homegrown British drama grew in confidence and the imported cop shows cycled through, Kojak's grip loosened. But that gleaming head and that soft-hearted growl remain one of the decade's most vivid Saturday night imports. Number 10. Starsky and Hutch screeched onto Saturday nights in a blaze of Californian sunshine and a bright red Ford Torino with a white stripe that every boy in Britain wanted to own. Two undercover cops, one dark and intense, one blonde and easygoing, chased villains through Los Angeles while their streetwise informant Huggy Bear fed them tips from the shadows. For British families huddled against the drizzle, the show was pure escapism, car chases, cardigans, and a friendship at its center that felt genuinely close. The Torino became so iconic that toy versions flew off the shelves and children argued over who got to be Starsky. It was faster, sunnier, and cooler than anything the home schedules offered. As the seasons ended and the fashion for slick American action shifted, the red car finally slowed. But the roar of that engine still starts up in the memory of anyone who was young in 1977. Number 9. The Muppet Show was the rare import that Britain could proudly call half its own, filmed in the studios of England and beloved across the entire globe. Jim Henson's chaotic theatre, hosted by the endlessly patient Kermit the Frog and hijacked weekly by the glorious diva Miss Piggy, brought a parade of felt creatures and bewildered human guest stars to the ITV Saturday schedule. Families of every age adored it together, the little ones for the puppets, the grown-ups for the sharp wit, and the sheer surreal invention of it all. Statler and Waldorf heckled from their box, the Swedish chef flung food, and somehow it all held together in joyful anarchy. Few shows have ever united a household so completely. When the curtain finally came down on the original run, it left behind characters so beloved they never really left, though that particular weekly ritual of gathering for the Muppets belongs firmly to the era of 3 channels and 1 shared sofa. Number 8. Bruce Forsyth's Big Night was ITV's lavish, ambitious attempt to own Saturday evening outright, a sprawling entertainment spectacular built entirely around Britain's greatest showman. Bruce, fresh from years of Saturday dominance, was handed an enormous budget a huge studio, and a run of the night's biggest stars, stitching together games, sketches, music, and glamour into one gleaming variety extravaganza. It was television swinging for the fences, the sound of a channel determined to keep families glued to their sets for hours at a stretch. The audience adored Bruce's chin, his catchphrases, his effortless command of a live studio. Yet for all its scale and expense, the show never quite conquered as hoped. An ambitious giant that burned bright and briefly. It remains a fascinating monument to a moment when Saturday night was worth spending a fortune on, before schedules fractured and the whole nation stopped watching the same thing at once. Number 7. Blankety Blank arrived at the very end of the decade and instantly became a national institution, thanks to a wonky microphone and the impish charm of Terry Wogan. The premise was gloriously simple. Celebrities filled in the missing word of a sentence, and contestants tried to match them. But the real joy was the chaos, the gentle bickering of the star panel, and the prizes so cheap they became a running joke in themselves. Wogan wielded that absurd stick microphone like a conductor's baton, teasing the panelists, raising an eyebrow at the camera, making the whole thing feel like a party you were lucky to be invited to. Families laughed at the awful gifts, the innuendo, the sheer good nature of it all. Though hosts and decades would change, that original Wogan run captured something perfect. It proved that Saturday night needed nothing more than wit, warmth, and a wobbly microphone. Number 6. Match of the Day closed a certain kind of Saturday with the most reassuring theme tune in British broadcasting. After the pools were checked and the results read out in that hypnotic, rising and falling voice, the nation's football fans settled in for the highlights of the day's games. There were no phones, no live streams, no instant replays, and for millions, this was the only chance to see the goals, and the anticipation was half the pleasure. Dads and children who had stood on freezing terraces that very afternoon relived the action from the warmth of the settee, while those who had missed it caught up at last. The commentary, the analysis, the grainy, floodlit pitches all became part of the weekend's rhythm. Football on television has since become a torrent, available every hour of every day. But that once-a-week Saturday night ritual, patient and precious, belonged to a slower and more anticipatory age. Number 5. Parkinson gave Saturday night its moment of grown-up glamour, an hour when the biggest names in the world sat down to talk to a quietly brilliant Yorkshireman. Michael Parkinson, unflappable and endlessly curious, coaxed stories out of Hollywood legends, sporting heroes and national treasures with nothing more than a good question and the patience to listen. Families stayed up past the children's bedtime for this one, the sense of occasion palpable, the sofa reserved for conversations that felt genuinely important. Some interviews became legend, talked about for years, from the riotous to the poignant to the occasionally disastrous. In an age of only 3 channels, a single Parkinson interview could become the thing the whole nation discussed on Monday morning. As the chat show format multiplied and fragmented, that shared sense of event dissolved. But for a generation, Saturday night meant settling in to hear the famous made suddenly, thrillingly human. Number 4. Doctor Who sent the nation's children scrambling behind the settee every Saturday tea time and delighted in every second of it. Through the middle of the 1970s, the mighty Tom Baker, all curls and scarf and wild-eyed grin, defined the role for a generation, battling Daleks, Cybermen, and the terrifying Sontarans on wobbly sets that somehow only made the fear more real. The moment that theme music started, its eerie electronic wail rising from the wireless world of the BBC, families knew the weekend had properly begun. Parents who had grown up with the show now watched it with their own children, the terror and the wonder passing down like an heirloom. The cliffhanger endings left the whole household desperate for the following week. Doctor Who would endure, vanish, and return again across the decades, but that particular tea time in the 1970s, jelly babies, monsters, and a scarf that never ended, remains sacred to everyone who hid behind the cushions. Number 3. The two Ronnies delivered the finest sketch comedy the BBC ever produced, and made Saturday nights ring with laughter across the entire country. Ronnie Barker and Ronnie Corbett, one tall and round and grand, one small and quick and puckish, wrote and performed comedy of dazzling craft, the elaborate wordplay, the news desk gags, Corbett's rambling armchair monologues that wandered gloriously off the point before circling home. It's good night from me, and it's good night from him. Households of every generation laughed together, the sketches clean enough for children, yet clever enough to delight their parents. The famous 4 candles routine alone entered the national memory forever, quoted in playgrounds and pubs for decades. When Britain still gathered as one before 3 channels, a two Ronnies punchline was common property by Monday. Their gentle, meticulous, joyous comedy defined an era, and its absence from the modern schedule is felt more keenly than almost any other on this list. Number 2. Morecambe and Wise were, quite simply, the comedy that the whole of Britain agreed to love at once. Eric, with his glasses shifted sideways and his hand slapping Ernie's cheek, and Ernie, forever writing plays what he wrote, created a partnership so perfect it felt less like an act than a friendship the nation was allowed to eavesdrop on. Their shows drew audiences so vast that they became national events in themselves, the biggest stars in the world queuing up to be gloriously humiliated by 2 men from the northern variety circuit. Families laughed until they ached, the whole household united in helpless delight at the paper bag trick, the breakfast dance, the sheer warmth radiating off the screen. In a fractured age, it is almost impossible to imagine comedy uniting a country so completely. When that partnership ended, something irreplaceable went with it, the sense that, for one evening a week, an entire nation was laughing at exactly the same joke. Number 1. The Generation Game crowns this countdown as the definitive Saturday night show, the program that gathered the whole family onto one sofa and refused to let them leave. Bruce Forsyth held the nation in the palm of his hand through the early years. Nice to see you nice. Didn't he do well? Anthea Redfern giving us a twirl before Larry Grayson took over with his "shut that door" and his camp, giggling charm. Ordinary families competed at daft tasks, throwing pots, icing cakes, tackling comic sketches before the immortal finale. The conveyor belt of prizes rolling past a memorizing contestant, the whole country shouting "cuddly toy" at the screen. It was warm, silly, inclusive, and utterly irresistible, television at its most generous. No show captured the spirit of the British Saturday night more completely. When the format finally faded, it took with it the very idea of the whole nation, grandparents to grandchildren, sitting down to play the same game together. Across all 25 entries, from the quiet glamour of Sale of the Century to the triumphant family-gathering warmth of the Generation Game, these forgotten shows tell the story of a Britain that watched television together. It was an age of 3 channels and rented color sets, of no remote and no second chances, when missing a program meant missing it forever, and when, for one precious evening a week, the entire country laughed, gasped, and cheered at exactly the same thing. Which of these do you remember curling up to watch? Tell me in the comments which show your family never missed, and which one you'd bring back tomorrow.